Welcome to part 5. Well, the house is really starting to take shape at this point. It's taking on a life of its own. When I look back at the original, I can honestly say, you've come a long way, baby. So let's take a look at the inside now. It's pretty typical, 3 stories, each divided into 2 rooms, so 6 rooms in total. On the first floor, there's a set of stairs that takes up an awful lot of room and a wall. And the wall prevents you from accessing the back of the room in the bay window. So I might have to do something about that. The second floor is supposed to have a set of stairs, and those were missing when I took ownership of the house. So what I wanted to do was to stage the rooms with the existing furniture that I had. So I set up a little bit of a kitchen. I knew the kind of storyline I was going after. A sea captain, and he was running a business on the main floor. And I had lots of props and different miniatures that I could use to establish this theme. But again, the stairwell was getting in the way, and that partial wall just didn't make sense to me. Yes, it divided the 2 rooms, but it also made the kitchen very small, and that was going to be a main feature. Also, the stairwell opening on the second floor took up a lot of room and ate into the real estate that I really wanted to be able to use. I did a staging of the sitting room, and I kind of like where that one is going because I do have a lot of nautical themed items in my collection. So I'm pretty much going to stay with the overall layout of that room. But on the third floor upstairs, I chose the largest bedroom and I put 2 twin beds in there. But I'm rethinking that because when I look at the house, I know there's some construction to be done. So I called in the night crew, and we set to work. First thing was remove the stairs. What a difference that made. Now, the little window is in an odd place, but it might become part of a feature wall. I mended the opening by using a piece of foam core, which is easily cut with an X-Acto knife, and I doubled up on it 2 layers because I knew I was going to cover over the floor anyway. On the ceiling side, on the main floor, I just used plaster to fill in the space. On the third floor upstairs, I also filled in the opening that had been designated for a stairwell. So that gave me a lot of extra room to work with. When I look at the outside of the house, I let that dictate how I should be decorating and thinking about the inside. So one of the things I did was to create a template for each floor. I just used white poster board, and I laid that out on each floor so that I could make an accurate template, because when I do my floors, I'm going to do the floor outside of the house and then install it as one great piece. That makes it so much easier. Now on the main floor, you can see how that opened up that room. Here I'm just showing you just a little bit of my nautical collection. I've thrifted for years, and I always knew I was collecting for this one particular project. So there's a lot to choose from. Probably have enough to do 3 nautical houses. So back to the inside of the house. The first floor is going to be the kitchen / boat rental space, and I needed furniture. Let me show you how I made a few bits and pieces of furniture for this new space. So I wanted to show you what I made today and how I improvised. So you know that I'm working on my New England fishing house, and I'm doing all the furnishings and the room layouts. And one of the things I'm doing on the main floor is the big kitchen slash restaurant slash fish market. So I needed some big kitchen tables. And most of the kitchen tables that I have in my stash are quite delicate. I mean, this is great if you're having a cup of coffee and a soft-boiled egg, but in a restaurant, it really serves no purpose. It's too delicate looking. So I needed something that was a little more skookum. This one didn't fit the bill either. Again, too delicate and too traditional in its appearance. I wanted a good old working table that you might find in a fish market with a big surface. Now, I had some of these dollar store little tables, and anytime I see them, I pick them up because they're a good base and you can build on them. They're not the greatest in quality. I broke the leg even just taking it out of the package, so they do need some beefing up. Some people use a heat gun and soften up the glue, take them apart and rebuild them, but I used it as is. Now, also at the dollar store, I found packages of fairly thick wood. This is like a plywood. It's like two ply, and it's got a real nice surface on it. It was the perfect size for building my table. So I used one of the dollar store tables and I glued it into the center. I just used a tacky glue and glued it in place. Once it was all set up, I then used some of the thin wood trim that I also got at the dollar store. And as you can see, this is all pre-cut. It's perfect for doing all kinds of everything from picture frames to door trims, window trims, furniture trim, anything. You don't have to cut into thin strips. It was very affordable. I think a package was like $2.50 or $1.50, something like that, and there were like 16 or 18 pieces in the package. So that's my go-to. So once I had secured the top of the table onto the base, then I trimmed out the front. I took the little knobs off the front. See, it comes with little knobs. Took those off, and I cut pieces to fit in between the legs on both sides, glued that in place, and then using the trim, I also put pieces between the legs, and that stabilized the table a lot. And then I added 2 pieces on the outside of the legs to balance. This will probably be painted and stained, but it's really solved me having to look for another big surface or to create something different. And I really like how they turned out. So I've got 2 of them, and you can see the scale is really good. This is just a little chef that I have. I have 2 of them, and I always kind of use him as a test to regulate my heights, and this works perfectly. So solution, I've got 2 great looking tables, pennies as far as cost wise, and if you ever pop into the dollar store and you go into the craft department, they sell a lot of, and I don't know if it's a Dollar Tree or Dollarama or what dollar store, because I'm always in and out, 2 or 3 of them in our area. This is a thin plywood, and again, cuts beautifully, and it's great for doing all kinds of things. So I always pick up packages of it. It comes in 2 or 3 different sizes, which leads me on to my other piece. So on the 3rd floor of my sea captain's fisherman slash lighthouse slash restaurant slash boat rental slash house, in the room, one of the rooms upstairs, I wanted to create kind of a drafting table, something that would be used by a retired sea captain if he wanted to look at maps, or measure distances or whatever. So I didn't have a drafting table. I took an old dining room table that I had. I had 2 or 3 of these, very narrow, but I modified it. I'm not a carpenter, but I can cut a line. I can cut a piece of wood, and I built the framework, glued it in place, secured the top out of one of these pieces, the thin pieces of ply, and then I framed it in with some of that nice framing. And I also built a little drawer. The drawer doesn't move. It's glued in place. It's stable. I braced it at the bottom with an extra little piece, and it'll hold, protractors and pencils and pens and things like that. But I thought this would be so cute in that room. It suits the room. I'm probably going to end up using a combination of paint and stain. I have a set of these chairs that are just perfect. The seats are woven with a cording, and they just suit the whole look of the room with the rope, associated with rigging, boat rigging. So there's my 3 pieces that I did today, amongst other things, but there you have it. Today's accomplishment. 2 working kitchen tables.
So after fooling around for quite some
drafting
time
table.
and adjusting and doing a layout, I finalized exactly what I wanted on the first floor. Using my 2 new kitchen tables that I built and some other existing bits and pieces that I had, I have established that the first floor is going to be dedicated to a fish shop, a tiny little takeout kitchen restaurant, and the boat rental side, which will be on the far right. On the upper floors, I have the man's room with the pool table and other accessories, and next to that will be his sitting room. Of course, this doesn't look as fancy yet because we've got to have to put floors in and all the other bits and pieces and the decorations as well. But I know where I'm going now. The bedroom will be on the 3rd floor upstairs, and I'm using a double bed with 2 bedside tables and a dresser. And there's a partition pony wall between the 2 rooms on the 3rd floor. The other room is going to be the den, which aligns with where the lighthouse is on the exterior side of the house. It all starting to make sense now that the sea captain, who also looks after the lighthouse lamp, when he needs to access the lamp, he will do so by leaving the den. He will have access through a set of stairs that will lead up to this outside platform. There's the lighthouse right behind the room, and he'll be able to access that room. Remember, I thought it was going to be a bedroom, but now it's going to be a den. And that outside set of stairs is going to lead directly up to the lighthouse and create a conversation point. So far, I'm very happy with the progress and the storyline as it's unfolding. Can't wait to start pulling out all the different accessories and getting the exterior and the interior of this house all decorated with all the bits and pieces. Lobster traps and crab traps and little boats for rent and buoys and fish nets and all the accoutrements that you might find at an Atlantic coastal cottage.